Good day, this is Shauna Casey, and welcome to this SOS educational webcast, HR, Payroll, or Stock, Questions to Ask When Considering Outsourcing. Due to the large number of attendees, no conference call service is available for this webcast. The sound will broadcast through your computer speakers. However, if you wish to ask a question at any time during the presentation, please feel free to type it into the Questions and Answers panel of your GoToWebcast console, and we will do our best to answer them as they come in. Any questions that we don't get a chance to address during the webcast, we will follow up with afterwards in an email. This morning we sent an email with a link to the presentation materials to everyone that registered as of 10 a.m. Pacific this morning. You can also find the link to the materials under the Event Resources tab on your GoToWebcast console. This session will also be recorded, and we will send a link to the recording and materials in the next day or two. I hope that all of you are familiar with Stock and Option Solutions, or SOS as we are more commonly known. For those of you who are not, SOS is a leading stock administration, staffing, consulting, and outsourcing firm within the equity compensation marketplace. SOS provides interim and permanent placement, expert project resources, and total outsourcing solutions. To learn more, you can visit us online at www.sos-team.com or call us at 408-979-8700. Next, I'd like to introduce you to our speakers for today's session. We are pleased to have John Cunningham of Eau Clairo and our own Vanessa Harrison and Tonya Epps on the panel today. Next is our standard disclaimer slide. We'd like to remind you to consult your own advisors before making any changes. As I mentioned, the materials are available on our website, and here again is the link. And thank you all for joining us today. And with that, I'll turn this presentation over to Vanessa, who will introduce our topic and cover the agenda. Thank you, Vanessa.
All right. Thank you, Shauna. And thank you all for joining us today. Today, Tonya, John, and I really hope to walk you through some of the many considerations the company may face when choosing if outsourcing is right for you. Each of us offers a different perspective as both providers and recipients of what outsourcing relationship can provide. As one of the founders of our own SOS outsourcing service line, Tonya has played a key role in how SOS defines outsourcing for our clients, while John, having many things on his plate, being the assistant controller at Eau Clairo, chose to outsource his stock administration to us several years ago. For me, I serve as the HR business partner here at SOS and am the main point of contact for our own third-party provider, which we chose to outsource our internal HR and payroll functions to several years ago. Today, we hope to combine all of our experiences for you and really cover the many ways an outsourcing relationship can impact you, your team, and your company. So, of course, we thought we'd start with what is usually the beginning of the outsourcing puzzle. Why would you even consider outsourcing? Why would a company hand over the very functions that are usually most important to their employees to a third party? And the answer is almost always because we need a better way to do it, to save time and money while gaining more experience and better service. Pretty simple, right? Not always. But of course, the reasons why a company might start exploring the idea of outsourcing will vary for everyone. Company size, growth status, market factors all play a role in the big outsourcing decision. A very common theme that we see here at SOS, and as an outsourcing provider, and really the leading factor that drove us towards outsourcing our own HR and payroll functions, was simply the availability of resources.
Vanessa, I'm going to interrupt you for just a moment. If you can get a little bit closer to your mic, it's just sound a little bit distorted.
Okay. Let me see. Is that a little bit better?
A little bit, yeah. Thank you. All right, let's see. Is that a little bit better? I'm sorry. That's a lot better. Thank you. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. So as I was starting to talk about, a very common theme that we see here at SOS as an outsourcing provider, and the leading factor that really drove us towards outsourcing our own HR and payroll functions was simply just availability of resources.
Oftentimes a company might be in a growth period where the culmination of all these functions is just too much for one person, but not enough to justify additional headcount. And as many of us are probably familiar with, there just isn't budget to hire. And also from a compliance perspective, as government regulations get more stringent, even if you have the headcount, compliance management continues to be more and more complex, especially if you have operations in multiple states, even other countries as well. For instance, for us, the introduction of the Affordable Care Act really presented us with many new challenges as a small employer. For us, our HR administrator not only notified us of the changes that would impact our business, but sat down side by side with us to review all of our plans and ensure that we were in compliance. So having a strong outsourcing provider and partner can really help you better navigate those murky waters of any kind of benefit administration. And for SOS, competing with other employers in Silicon Valley, too, has been a challenge. As wonderful as I like to think it is to work here, we simply can't compete with Google sometimes. And as a small company, another driving factor for us was access to better, more affordable benefits. And besides just access to better benefits, we also found that we gained access to more knowledgeable advisors who could help us design and implement plans that better aligned us with the culture that we wanted and attract new, better talent as well. And last but certainly not least, of course, freeing up your key players to focus on these strategic initiatives allows you to better serve your business and your company as a whole. Getting to that list of things that we never seem to be able to get to because of the tactical, this really frees us up to be able to get to those bigger, broader things that we'd like to be able to tackle. And just a few more whys here before I hand it over. Efficiency, and probably we should have moved this up in the list, but since your outsourcing providers are specialized resources, they're very knowledgeable in a particular area. So many companies find that by using an outsourcing provider, they get access to more streamlined processes and on-demand expertise that you just can't always get or afford to have in-house. And for me, this meant that I could get things done quicker and easier with more confidence too. Likewise, while you may have a single point of contact that you're working with day in and day out to administer your plans, there's usually a whole team of experts with diversified experience supporting them behind the scenes. So outsourcing can really give you that peace of mind and knowing that you don't have to have all the answers all the time. You just know how to get them. And of course, as my co-presenters here on this webcast can attest to, just because you outsource a function does not necessarily mean it completely goes away. While a good outsourcing provider will really strive to get to know you and your company and your benefit plans well, you'll always be the main point of contact to ensure that the outsourcing provider is aligned with your company needs. I remain the face of HR for my employees and am still very heavily involved in decision making. And we'll talk a little bit more later on about some of the things to keep in mind to ensure that your outsourcing relationship is a successful one. But just wanted to point that out here that while there's many benefits to outsourcing, you will always remain involved in the key functions for your company. And then this graph here is just to show you that some of the top factors companies weigh when deciding if outsourcing is right for them. And as you can see, and something that I found pretty interesting about this, is that there necessarily isn't one overwhelming factor that plays into the decision of whether or not to outsource, but usually a combination of many important factors when making a decision about whether or not outsourcing may be right for you. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn things over to John, and he's going to walk you through some considerations which often impact the when and how a company may decide to engage in an outsourcing relationship.
John, are you there?
Oh, I'm here. Sorry. Thanks, Vanessa. And as she mentioned, there's a lot of different reasons, as to why you would outsource. And, I'm going to walk you through sort of when and give you my experience with our company and why we decided to outsource stock administration. So for us, probably the big thing that prompted us was cost. It's just very costly to have, especially in a highly competitive area like the San Jose area, to have a stock admin person. They tend to leave, migrate to other companies for various reasons. So the budget was a big piece for us in terms of prompting us of when to do it, and also that the person had left the position, so open position. And we also looked into other things like, okay, well, in terms of our company, we're international. We have performance grants. We have a lot of complications. So I think having a deep bench there is a key part of it too. A lot of outsourcing companies have access to experts. That if you're in a company, you just don't have access to that. You have to either call a legal firm or accounting firm to get a lot of that deep bench experience, what I'll call deep bench experience. So they were really the main factors that drove our company that prompted us to actually look into outsourcing and do the outsourcing for stock administration. There's other ones that are listed here that just in terms of you really have to size up your own company and just see, is the position really a full-time position? A lot of times for stock administration, it really isn't. And I would say even if it is a full-time position, you have to ask yourself, just in terms of employee turnover and deep bench access, whether that makes sense. And really, no matter in terms of when, it's really critical to how you handle, when you do make that decision. In the case of our company, we're like 2,000 people company, and we're located in multiple locations, geographic locations around the world. So for us, really we had to have a group that included finance, legal, and human resources to clearly get together, decide on how we're going to go about it. And in terms of employee communication is really, really a critical one. That second data point is really, really critical. And just in terms of meeting, getting the right, like I said, the right team together within the company to make the decision and go forward is also a very, very critical piece that has to be considered. So the when is if you're going to do it, make sure that you include all the right parties, you communicate it, and really do your homework on choosing the right team and the right outsource vendor. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tonya.
Yeah, John, actually, before you turn it over, I was just going to mention, I thought that's pretty unique because, I was talking a lot about our outsourcing experience as a small company, but Eclair is a pretty big company, and so outsourcing may be right for different size companies given different situations and statuses. There's all the factors that we're talking about, but I think it's pretty unique that it can work in any size company depending upon the situation, but all things to consider here.
Sure. Yeah, our company's over $1 billion market cap company, and public company. So yeah, I think regardless of the size, it could make sense to make the decision to outsource. Absolutely.
What would I outsource? Most providers are not a one-stop shop. How nice it would be to be Burger King and we could have it our way. We must determine what is causing you the most pain. What is the item that's causing the length of time? Example: we don't provide detailed payroll advice to the payroll team. We've been asked, hey, what tax rate should we use? So we tell them to consider their in-house tax consultants. But what we can do is provide detailed information on a tender offer, on an IPO, provide checklists. One thing to consider is, what are your biggest concerns? What stops you from completing a task in one day? Is it answering employee questions and inquiries? Do your employees just come by the office and sit down in a chair and start asking you questions about equity compensation? What is an incentive stock options? What is a non-qual? Is it hand-holding your Section 16 officers? Or maybe even creating specialized reports? Whatever it is, be strategic about what is the most painstaking. And it doesn't have to be painstaking. It's just what is consuming your time. The goal is to relieve you. sometimes if you just take the time out and just create a list of the items that you would love to outsource, it could be very helpful. What skill sets do you have in-house? Like once again, I said create a list of the skills. You can find out if employees would love to explore different areas in equity compensation. Here at SOS, we learned that some employees like to do more than one thing in equity compensation. So although here in Nashville, we outsource different things in equity compensation, in Nashville, in the stock administration, we do the daily work. We may do projects. We may do projects. We may do other things in equity compensation. But one thing we do is we kind of separate another team that's FRA. And we've learned that employees, not only do they want to do the stock plan administration, they also want to do a little of the FRA. Although we're all on the same team, they have the opportunity to explore different areas of outsourcing in SOS. What are the expectations in the area? Do your employees know what are the expectations you're considering to outsource? I think a lot of times employees don't know that, hey, I can utilize different skills that I have. You know, we've learned that people with equity compensation, no one is groomed to be a stock plan administrator. It's not something that you go to college for. A lot of us have come from different areas, HR, accounting, sales, retail. We've all come from different backgrounds, but we have learned stock administration, and sometimes we don't realize that the skills that we have and that we can utilize can better help the team. And so I will find out if there's skills that employees have that can be utilized. And one of the things that we're starting to do now here at SOS is when we interview, we look at that potential resume, regardless of the position that they're applying for. We look to say, hey, these are the skills that they have, and maybe let's see if they want to use those skills in other areas. And also, it keeps the employees engaged. They feel that we're looking at them, that we're considering all the skills that they have and what they can bring to the table. Another thing to consider is what are the current and future objectives of the company. Not only are you considering what are your expectations today, but what do you see your goals and your expectations in the next year, 2 years, or 5 years, or even longer? Where are you going? What is the vision? What are your ultimate goals? And have you created an environment for the employees to help you reach these visions and goals? And one of the things I like to look at, what's realistic, what is factual, and what are your projections? And those are things I would list, your pros and cons. Currently, right now, we are restructuring one of our divisions, and we're learning what areas are manual and what areas IT can streamline in the process. But even if we're looking at IT and the things they can do, is it the best solution in what's current and in the future? So in one area, we determined that IT is the current solution, but it's not the future solution as we grow, because it consumes some of the time that IT has. So some of the questions you may ask is, can IT keep up with the constant change that we're trying to do and improve? And will it take away from some of the bigger projects? And is it effective use of time and money? Who should be involved? That is huge when it comes to outsourcing. Building your dream team from decision-making to implementation. If you've ever been part of the implementation, you know and understand how difficult it can be. So we have our key stakeholders. Although they're running the company, they don't always know what the ins and outs of the daily work. So it's always good to have them because they have these great ideas, but they need to understand, what are we doing? What is the ins and outs of all the things that we're doing? HR. They can help you bring the data together. They can help you correlate all the information that you may need to upload information into a new platform. They can they have the way to find out ways how to export the data. Understand what you need understand what you need within implementation. Finance, huge. Everyone knows that we have to have finance because they do our expensing. Payroll. One of the things I learned about with payrolls is that when they're new to equity compensation, they don't know all the they don't know everything. A lot of times taxes are new. How do we withhold certain taxes? And if it's based on wages in a state, do we hold, for Georgia, do we hold 5, 6, or 7%? And so what we do is provide the information, the industry standard. And if everybody's on the phone together on one call as we do implementation, they can understand the process from beginning and to end and understand all the roles. Tax, current stock administrator. Your current stock administrator knows how the details, what goes on, how it works. They can provide insight on what will work or not. Legal. It is crucial to bring all these parties to the table and who will be involved. When you bring everybody to the table, you may not cause headache for your finance team. Like, for example, we have clients that love the reset and rollover. Well, when you have a reset or rollover, your finance team is going to have to expense that on a spreadsheet. But if we all come together and understand the complexity of what we're trying to do, we can all be on the same page, and we can eliminate and streamline the processes. Most of the team would like to know if their needs will be met. And as a group, we can resolve this. Solutions can be discovered, and wisdom can be provided. Now I'm going to hand it off to John, what to expect when you outsource.
Thanks, Tonya. And like Tonya said, it's important, to really have the right team together as you approach this. And in terms of our company, when we were choosing an outsourcing vendor, we had the team of legal, finance, and the accounting group, and also human resources. And one of the things that we took a look at is do we want to basically outsource everything? So like a whole all-inclusive, or just sort of pick different pieces. In our case, we felt comfortable with stock administration keeping the accounting piece in-house. We're well familiar with the different accounting issues and how to report that. So we felt more comfortable keeping that in-house and interfacing with our auditors. Everything else we chose to turn it over to SOS for outsourcing in that case. And that's actually worked out pretty well. Over the close to 4 years that we've been in this relationship. Another thing that we took a look at was we're looking at different vendors, and we looked at, I think, 3 different vendors. Was what type of technology do they have, and do they have are they more agnostic in terms of which software that you're using? And that was important to us because we were actually on a platform we didn't like, and we wanted to move to a different platform, and we wanted somebody that was basically agnostic in case, hey, so maybe the relationship doesn't work out. You want to be able to sort of move to potentially another outsource vendor, right? You want to have that flexibility. And one of the vendors we looked at had a proprietary solution, which we weren't crazy about, because then at that point, where do you really go with it? So, there are some things to consider. In our case, we wanted maximum flexibility there, and we were actually pretty happy that SOS, is basically, it doesn't matter what platform you're on in stock administration, they're going to be able to service you. And then in terms of references, we really put a lot of work here, just because it is such a key employee-facing application that we wanted to make sure that that our employees really wouldn't all of a sudden, when we did do the switch, all of a sudden they see degradation of service or anything like that. So this is definitely an area where you want to do your homework and put a checklist together. Have the other team members, HR and legal, involved too, in terms of reaching out to different companies in terms of getting references. And really, the good companies are going to have good references, right? I mean, that's generally the way it is. And if you call them up, they're going to be honest. And I think what you want to do too is try to find companies that are similar size to you and have similar issues, because that way you can really ask specific questions to those companies in terms of your stock plan and some of the issues that you come up with, and make sure that you're going to be serviced appropriately. So, and with that, I can turn it back to Tonya to cover what to expect once you outsource.
Thank you, John. So what do you expect when you outsource? Plan for implementation. One of the things we do is create a checklist pretty much for everything. We create a checklist, and we'll go through the checklist, and even before we get to the point where we want to hand things off, we come together as a group and decide. We've learned here in SOS, if we jump into handing off duties without the implementation, we encourage so many errors. But if we plan on weekly or bi-weekly calls so the team will understand what's going on, how things were handled in-house, and how things can be handled now going forward with streamlining the process, we'll look at best practices and industry standards. So it's very important that you have a plan for implementation. Clearly identified in-house role versus outsourcer. To create a smooth process, the in-house stock administrator and outsource stock administrator need to understand their roles. At SOS, we create these checklists and processes and procedures. We'll go through from the very beginning of any process. If it's a grant process, if it's an exercise process, we go from the beginning, from when the stock administrator in-house receives the information from HR, or they may receive it from the board. We do a process, we do a checklist, and within that checklist, we identify roles. You know, the in-house administrator is going to provide the outsource of this information. So we provide these checklists and processes so everyone is on the same page. And it doesn't mean that these roles are going to always be the same. They're going to constantly change because as new things come about, as new regulations and laws and rules come about, and even with new changes within the company changes, they may change how they administer their ESPP plan. They may decide how they now administer the ESOP plan. They may decide, hey, now we're going to do SARs, or they will only issue in restricted stock. They may decide that they want to do options, or even go only do restricted stock. So as things change and as things come about, roles change. And roles are going to change as well when you have new people coming in and out of positions. Remaining the point of contact for your company and embracing the outsourcing company as an extension of your team. And that's true. We're an extension of your team. We're not a third-party vendor. We're actually part of your team because we have a common goal. We have a common goal to do the best and to be the best and create an atmosphere where everyone understands that we are here to provide a service that's outstanding, that's excellent. We want to continue the smooth transition process to eliminate the errors. It is important that we continue that main point of contact so there will always be some, because there's always going to be something that we forget, or we forgot to mention, or there's going to be an out-of-box situation that have occurred that the in-house administrator knew about. They may have done it 2 years ago, and now it has come back. And having a main point of contact, we can reach out to them and say, hey, I received a request from so-and-so, so-and-so. He told me that you guys just did this 2 years ago. Can you help me understand as to what's going on? If we continue that teamwork environment, the process will continue to stay smooth, and we will continue to provide excellent service. And embracing the outsourcing company, yes. Do a review at least annually. I can't say how important that is. And the reason why it's important is that we want to continue to work well, with one another. We want to make sure that we provide a better service and find ways to anticipate problems and to create solutions. When you do a review annually with the client, I wouldn't say necessarily the in-house administrator. I think it's important that we do a review with the entire team because sometimes when they know who your main point of contact, your account manager, the tax team will just send you an email, or legal will send you an email. And if we get different requests from different parts of the company, it's important to know that we've met everyone's need, not just the in-house administrator, because sometimes they may not be in a loop because they may need something now, and someone may be on vacation. So it's very important that we can constantly keep abreast of what's going on. How can we better help one another? and always know what can we improve. Nothing works great unless we know how we can be better at what we do. And take advantage of all that we have to offer, all that any outsourcer has to offer. We help with industry standards. We help with best practices because we've been in the industry for a while, so we know what works and what doesn't work. We understand out-of-box resolutions, things that, for example, right now we're doing a tender offer, and one of the process that the client wants to do, it's one way, but it may not be the best practice. And so the great thing about taking advantage of what we have to offer, we can come back with a list of questions. This is what I've seen in the past. What are your end goals and how can we get there? Once again, as we mentioned before, when taking advantage of what we have to offer, we have multiple checklists. For IPO implementation, every different processes based on platform and software. Because we have all these checklists based on different platforms and software, we can help you, give you the best software or platform based on what your equity compensation plan is. And one of the main things I would say is ask as many questions as you need, because we draw from everyone's expertise in our company. And I'd like to hand it to Vanessa.
Great. Thanks, Tonya. And I think before I move on to the next slide, I just wanted to add a couple things as the recipient of an outsourcing relationship. When it comes to planning for an implementation, one of the things that I think, and I could even probably ask you and John both, make sure you plan enough time for an implementation, because this certainly doesn't happen quickly. From properly evaluating all the different vendors out there, vetting all the different vendors, putting that list together that you talked about, Tonya, of all the internal functions and weighing the ones that are causing you the most pain, to gathering up all the data and preparing for an implementation. These things take time, and so a rushed implementation really can be detrimental to your internal teams. And so, planning for that, putting the time in, working with your vendors to get a realistic expectation of exactly how long it'll take to get a new partnership rolled out is definitely key. And taking advantage of all they have to offer, really getting the most bang for your buck. A lot of times, we talked about the cafeteria plan versus the all-inclusive plans. If you've gone with a vendor that really kind of buckets everything together, make sure you understand all that they have to offer. With our HR and payroll provider that we use, they're more of that all-in-one provider. And so they offer everything from recruiting assistance to compensation reviews, one-on-one coaching and mentoring for our executive management. So, while you may move towards an outsourcing relationship for that day-to-day relief, make sure you know everything that you can tap into, especially with that deep bench of expertise that you may be gaining access to. You want to make sure that you're fully taking advantage of everything that they have to offer. And the defining of the different roles, from an HR perspective, it was always going to be key that we had a primary face and point of contact for our team to go to for sensitive issues or for time-sensitive issues. But I have a whole team with our third-party provider that I can lean on to gain access to knowledge or guidance. But making sure that I've clearly identified myself as a key role here internally. And then what things to go to our third-party provider for. For instance, benefits-related matters. I am not a benefits expert. We have a benefits expert that we rely heavily on for those types of questions. But if you have an issue or a question about how to handle a situation here in the office, I'm your go-to point of contact. So, setting those clear expectations with your team, very well, communicating very well with the team what to expect as you move into this new relationship and how it's really going to benefit them, I think really plays a key role in setting yourself up for success with an outsourcing relationship. And, I definitely wanted to, in case all of our experiences weren't enough for you, we really wanted to just show you some interesting statistics that we dug up and the impact of hiring versus outsourcing key roles within your company as a provider. And so, as many of you know, on average, it takes several months of salary to replace a person who might leave your company. And the salary isn't the only thing that you're really replacing. It's the lost time to ramp somebody up, the payroll costs, and the impact to the business should you lose somebody in a key role within your company. And with an outsourcing relationship, turnover, for lack of a better term, really isn't your problem. You've handed over that function to an outsourcing provider, and if they have turnover, they get replacements up to speed on your company and their internal processes very quickly. And so you're not worried about that burden of replacing somebody who might leave your company in a key role like that. And that's not even to mention the potential cost of any kind of claim that might come across your company. And this $125,000 I really think is probably pretty conservative. The cost for any kind of discrimination claim, in California especially, you could be looking at much more than that. And so, as we've mentioned a couple of times throughout the presentation, cost isn't necessarily always everything. And though it may be the driving factor going into an outsourcing relationship for many companies, I think once a company gets well ingrained into a long-term outsourcing relationship, the benefits that they see oftentimes are outside of just cost and greater than and deeper than just cost. And if you'd like to read more about any of the sources that we use today, we will provide links to the provided materials today, and within those materials we'll have the links here to the different sources that we used for digging up these data points and statistics for you today. And so really with that, we'd love to open it up to any questions you may have. You can type them into the box here. And we can certainly follow up with you after the presentation today too if you have any specific questions related to the materials that we covered today. And I'll also let Shauna go ahead and share any closing remarks that she may have.
Thank you, Vanessa. So I would just like to thank you and John and Tonya who joined us today, and thank all of you for attending today's educational webcast. Please look for an email in the next couple of days with links to the recording and materials. And we'll hold it open here for a few minutes or about a minute or so to see if any questions do come in. I know we're running a little bit short on time here, up against the hour. So if there's any questions that John can answer or Vanessa, Tonya, please don't hesitate to go ahead and ask those now. Okay, looks like we haven't gotten any takers on asking any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end the webcast. And thank you all again. Bye-bye.